and welcome to Sew with Stacy. Today we will be making a lovely makeup bag. This is another super simple sewing project that any beginner can do in about an hour. Are you ready? Let's get sewing. To make your bag, you're going to first need to get some fabric. I recommend that you use a cotton canvas fabric for this bag. I've chosen a printed cotton canvas that I'm going to use for the outside of the bag, but I've decided to use a contrasting color for the inside of the bag, which is just a basic cotton fabric. You can decide if you want to use the same fabric for the inside or outside of your bag. You'll need a 1/4 meter or yard of fabric to complete this project. And actually, if you have some bigger pieces of scrap fabric in your stash, this is a great project to use up some of the fabric you already have. Next, you will also need to have some matching thread. I've gone with a thread that matches my contrasting color. And finally, you'll need to choose a 16-inch zipper. I've chosen more of a chunky style to go with this bag. You can choose a normal dress zipper or whatever one that you like the best for your project. You will need a few items from your sewing toolkit. First, you will need your ruler, fabric pencil or marker, and your scissors in order to measure, mark, and cut your fabric for the bag. Next, you'll want to grab your pins. There's some areas where we will want to pin the fabric onto certain pieces to make it easier to sew. And finally, you'll want to grab your seam ripper just in case you make some mistakes. To make our bag, you will need one piece of fabric that's 17.5 inches by 12 inches for the outside of the bag. For the inside of the bag, you will need one piece of fabric of the same size, 17.5 inches by 12 inches. You will also need two pieces of fabric that's 11.5 inches by 3 inches that we'll use to be able to insert the zipper. We will also need two small pieces of fabric that are 4 inches by 2 inches that we will use for the tabs of the zipper. And finally, you'll need one 16-inch chunky zipper. To start, we're going to attach our zipper pieces to our zipper, but there's a few things we need to do in order to prepare for that. First, on our zipper, measure the middle point of your zipper and mark it with your pencil. And you'll want to do that on both sides. Next, you'll want to do the same thing on both of your zipper pieces on the back side of the piece. And we're going to mark that halfway point. We know that these are 11.5 inches, so that midpoint is at 5 3/4. And you'll want to do that on both sides of your fabric. And before we start sewing, we're going to take our zipper pieces, and we're going to do a little bit of pressing. We're going to take the sides, each of the sides, and turn them over so it's about 1/2 of an inch, and we'll press that side down to make a nice edge. And we'll do it on both pieces on both sides of the fabric. If you want, you can use a ruler for this. It's your call, whatever's easier for you. I will likely use a ruler when I go press this. And then the final thing you'll need to do is on only one long side of this piece, you'll want to do the same thing. Turn it over about 1/2 an inch and press it down. But just on one side. And we'll do the same thing on the second piece. I'm going to take this, go iron it, and I'll be right back to show you how we sew these onto our zipper. Now that we've pressed our 2 fabric pieces that are going to be attached to our zipper on the 3 sides that we outlined earlier, we now need to sew these pieces to our zipper. To do that, you want to find one of the pieces and get that middle mark that you've put onto the piece of fabric and align it with the middle mark that you've put onto the zipper itself. You'll want the fabric to go over the top of the zipper, because what will happen is once we sew it, this will go over, turn over, and will give you a nice clean edge, and the fabric will be on the right side. You also want to make sure that you're lining this up so that the zipper is also facing upward. Once it's aligned, you can put a few pins to put it in place. And then what we'll do is we'll sew a straight line along this edge as close to the zipper as we possibly can get. I'm going to use a zipper foot for this, just to make it so it gets as close as you can. You don't want to go over the top of the zipper, but you do want to sew along that edge. You can feel the ridge of the zipper under the fabric. And a zipper foot allows you to get pretty close to that zipper. But don't worry, you can use a standard foot if you don't have a zipper foot. It will still look really good when it's done. Once we sew one side, we're going to repeat the process on the other side. But first we'll push that piece we just sewed over. So you can now see that nice beautiful edge on our zipper. We'll take our second piece and align it with that mark on the other side of the zipper. Pin it in place and sew, just like we did. Our next step is for both sides of this. We want to turn this piece of fabric over and line up that other edge that we ironed down to the edge of the zipper. Pin that down, and once we're done, what we're going to do is we're going to stitch along the side, along that nice edge by the zipper, and down on both sides. But before we do any sewing, I'm going to take this and press it down for both sides so it's a nice solid edge, and we'll come back and do our sewing. As you can see, we just pressed those fabric pieces that are going to go on the zipper so that they're folded in half, and that nice folded edge is aligned with the edge of the zipper. We don't want it to overlap the zipper because you want the zipper to be able to open. And that's been done on both sides. Our next step is to complete our zipper construction by doing a nice top stitch along the small edge, along the long edge, and the next small edge on both pieces. But before that, I'm going to go ahead and pin this in place to make sure that those edges on the bottom don't move while I'm sewing. The final bit we'll need to do is to add the little tabs on the ends of our zippers just to give it a nice finish. To do that, before we do any sewing, we need to press these pieces so that they'll fit nicely around that tab. To press it, we'll fold both sides into the middle, do a nice press, and then on the edges, we want to press the edges in just so that it covers that zipper. In the case with the zipper I've chosen, you can see it's about 1/4 of an inch or so just to cover it. I'll need to do it for both pieces because a tab will go on each side of the zipper. I'm going to take these and press them, and I'll be right back. Now that I've pressed these little tabs, I'm going to take them and put them over the ends of the zipper. Make sure they look nice and neat and pin them in place. Have a play with them, make sure they look nice. They can be a bit fiddly. Once you're happy with the positioning, just make sure that zipper can zip up and down okay. And it sure does. The last thing we need to do to put our tabs on is just to sew as close to the edge as possible along the edge sides and along the edge across the zipper. Just be careful when you sew across the zipper. You don't want to break your needle, so just be extra careful as you do that. And then down the other side. And those will attach our tabs to our zipper. We are now ready to put our bag together. To start, we will need to lay the fabric that we're using for the outside of our bag on our table face up. We're going to also grab our ruler and our fabric marker and mark the middle point of this piece of fabric. We know that it's 12 inches long, so the middle mark will be at 6. Next, we will grab our zipper, turn it upside down so that the zipper pull is facing downward, and we're also going to mark the middle point of our zipper construction. We are then going to take our zipper with it facing downward, so our zipper pulls facing downward, and line it up so those middle marks are lined up together along the edge. Once we're happy with that alignment, we will grab the inside fabric that we've pre-cut for our bag and lay it on top. And this should align with the fabric we have for the outside of the bag. And make sure your fabric is facing, the good side is facing downward. Once we're happy with the alignment, we are going to pin and sew along that edge. Our next next step is to sew the zipper to the top of the other side of the bag. And to do that, we're just going to open up what we just put together, take the zipper and pull it across and line it up along that top side of the bag. You can put a mark on your fabric to indicate the middle point, but because we've already sewn this together to the zipper, all you need to do is make sure that the bottom of your bags the sides of your bags are aligned on both sides, which means that this middle part of your zipper will be aligned properly too. Next, now that you're happy with that alignment, you grab the inner side of your bag and align it along the top as well. And you'll know that this is correct because this pink piece will be on top of the other piece. We will pin and sew along that edge now. Now that the top of the bag is attached to our zipper, we need to sew along the edges of our bag. To do this, it's a little easier if you unzip the zipper and you want to align it so that your lining edge for the side matches and the front of your bag side matches. And you also want to make sure the zipper is put inside of the bag. Unzipping it gives it a little bit more flexibility so you can hide it in there. To do our sewing, we're going to align your two side edges for your bags together, and we're going to pin and sew along that long edge on both sides. But on one of the sides, we're going to leave open a 2 to 3 inch space so we can pull the bag right side out. And that space should be on the lining fabric so that when we stitch it up, it's hidden inside your bag and you don't have it visible on the outside. So I'm going to line this up, pin it, and sew on both sides, leaving that 2 to 3 inch opening on the side panel for the lining. A little hint, when you're sewing seams together, sometimes it's easier if you open the seams up and you can align your stitch marks together. Makes it a little bit cleaner. Another tip, if you need to leave an opening so you can pull something right side out, you can use your fabric marker just to put a few marks to remind yourself to stop stitching and leave that space open. We want to make sure the space is in the middle of your lining side, not by the cutout on the bottom, because we'll need that space to box it out. And since we're going to leave the opening on the other side of the bag, this side will be fully stitched. We don't need to have an opening on this side. And again, make sure that zipper's on the inside of the bag. Let's go sew our sides. With our side sewn, we now just need to box out our corners. So if you take your corner and you open it up and you line up those two edges that you cut out, you just need to stitch with the 1/2 inch seam allowance along those edges, and that gives the bottom of your bag a little bit more fullness so you can put lots of nice things inside of it. We'll do this for all 4 corners of our bag. With our corners boxed out, just trim the edge of that about 1/2 of the seam allowance, so it's about 1/4 of an inch. We can now turn our bag right side out. So find your opening and just pull it through. Push your lining in and clean it up so those corners are all nice and popped out. And you can now see your lovely bag. The final thing we need to do is to sew up that hole that is on the inside of our lining. And to do that, we just fold under the edges so it's all nice and lined up, and we sew as close to that seam as possible to create a really clean finish. Congratulations, you have just finished making your lovely makeup bag. Of course we can put makeup in it, but I'm going to put some hair scrunchies that I just made my daughter so we don't lose them. Thank you for joining us at Sew with Stacy. If you enjoyed our video today, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. We want to keep producing lots of great, simple sewing projects for you to try at home and to help you become a better sewer. We look forward to seeing you next time.